There is lots that I want to cover with you, not least immigration. There's a 36-point plan that's been released today. I shouldn't laugh because I take this issue very, very seriously. I just think it's just absolutely absurd now because we have lost control. And will we ever be able to get it back? Is this 36-point plan the answer or not? I'll get into that in a few minutes. Alongside me, the co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani, and the political commentator and social worker, Yosef David. Welcome back, everybody. One of the things that I was asking Aaron just before the break was how coordinated it seems to me that if you want the Tories out, there's all these different groups with high-profile people backing it. If you're a Muslim and you're really passionate about Gaza or whatever, there's a very slick campaign there. But if you're someone that wants to, I don't know, you're to the right of centre, you don't want Labour to get in or whatever, there's nothing, unless I'm missing something.
Well, there was meant to be reform, Michelle. We were talking about this non-stop for 6 months.
No, I'm talking about, like, yes, of course.
Campaigns.
Yeah, so like a tactical sense, because many people, I speak to lots of you guys at home every day, many people will say, we don't know who to vote for. What we know is we don't want Labour to get in, but do we go for the Tories or do we go for reform? Are we just going to waste votes? What is the best way to do it? And there doesn't seem to be any kind of tactics involved.
There's no tactics, no strategy, no logistics. I think all of that stuff...
Why not?
I think the right has just imploded in this country for a bunch of reasons. Some I think inevitable. I think Brexit and that fight from 2016 to 2019 really dissolved British conservatism as we know it. I think that was part of the ambition of people like Mr Farage, and they want to remake it in their image. That's going to take a while. You're not going to do that in 1-2 years. That's going to take, the best part of a decade. So I think British conservatism is in a very bad place. What I would say is Labour have the opportunity now over the next 5-10 years to be the sort of party of the centre-right. I know we think of them as being in the trade unions' pockets, but I think Labour and Keir Starmer view themselves really as the heirs to people like David Cameron. And then I think it's for the left, the Greens, the Workers' Party, Independents, the Labour left, and the right to recompose themselves, because there's a real opportunity here for Labour to, like I say, govern from the centre ground for a very long time. And I don't say that happily because there's many things I disagree with when it comes to Keir Starmer.
The problem is not just with the right of politics. You just said that Keir Starmer sees himself as the heir to Cameron. So he sees himself as the heir to somebody from a different party. Yeah. And the trouble is that they've all been Blairites since Blair. We haven't actually had a real Labour man or a real Conservative.
Liz Truss?
Person.
What's your days? Many would say that she was to the right.
Yes, unfortunately, the system closed her down, and we didn't have an opportunity to actually see conservative economics. I would have settled for a social conservative, but we said, OK, so, conservative economics, and the system closed her down. The trouble is that we're all centrists at the moment. The main parties are centrists, and I agree with you. I think Labour in the centre, we would disagree on this, but I think they're incredibly dangerous. I think that's when they can really change this country.
What are they dangerous on?
Migration.
You think immigration will go up under Starmer?
I think it would be hard for it to go up. I think it will be maintained. Starmer's spoken about safe and legal routes. That's his answer. As opposed to stopping the boats from coming over, provide safe and legal routes. And we know that traditionally Labour have been a lot more open to the idea of open borders than the Conservatives had. And the last time the centrists from Labour were in, they changed the country forever. Not just with regard to immigration, but also launching wars, changing the way this country is viewed across the world, and also the way that we function as a democracy, as the way that our politics actually functions, was changed by Tony Blair. And I don't know when we're going to recover from it.
And what do you think, too, when we talk about the Labour Party, one of the key challenges to the Labour Party now will be the rise of what I would call the organised Muslim vote. So whether that's, you've seen all these people now going into the Green Party, you've seen lots of people standing as independents on things like Gaza. We've just been talking about George Galloway's party as well. I think that Labour perhaps didn't see that one coming.
In terms of sectarian voting, I think that's always the risk, particularly for a party like Labour that likes to play identity politics. So promoting the idea that you should vote for us because you're from a minority community entrenches people's idea of belonging to that community, and it hastens the prospect of political parties around religion or around our groupings. I think it's very dangerous. I think it's something that Labour has walked into.
But it's deeper than that, though, isn't it? Because the whole situation that's unfolding and escalating in Gaza, that is something that's held deeply by many people, not just of a particular religious leaning, but much broadly than that. People want there to be a ceasefire, and it seems to be for a lot of people that this is one of their, we saw it in the locals, it was one of their primary driving motivations when selecting who to vote for.
Well, it seems like not a very smart reason to base your decision on for a local election, an international issue. But I think for a lot of people, they saw it as a way to, in the moment, make their voices heard.
So you don't think that'll translate to a general election?
I don't think so. Not to the same extent. Maybe there's a possibility of a few seats. If the demographics of the country change going forward, it could be that sectarian politics is something very, very real in the future. But right now, for this next election, I don't think it's going to impact.
Do you think it'll impact the generals?
It's down to the politicians and how they take advantage of it. I think if you had a stellar political leader with a well-resourced, well-funded organisation, they could take 15, 20 seats off Labour.
Really?
But that
on what basis? On what issue?
Foreign policy, on a minimal economic agenda and foreign policy, populist rhetoric, basically what the Workers' Party's tried to do. I think you could do that in 15, 20 seats. Look at somewhere like Bethnal Green, which is going to be redrawn, but it'll still be that constituency where you have Rushanara Ali, Labour. That is Tower Hamlets first, Lutfur Rahman. I don't think he's... Well, I know he's not going to stand as the candidate there. If he wanted to, he'd walk it. And so I think, actually, if you look at 2030, there are huge opportunities for individuals, parties to the left of Labour. Like I say, you don't need a massive agenda, minimal economic agenda, of a socialist, quasi-socialist agenda, plus the foreign policy stuff, plus really go big on the rhetoric and the messaging. Like I say, 15, 20 seats.
Aaron, can I ask you, why do you think George Galloway and Jeremy Corbyn have not joined up?
Well, they're very different people. I know that Jeremy Corbyn... Yeah, well, I think they are very different people. I mean, George Galloway said this. George Galloway said to me that, Jeremy Corbyn's a liberal. He cares about what you would call identity politics, the green agenda. George Galloway thinks we should forget fracking. He thinks we should get coal back. So it really is. It's a much bigger gulf than people think. Yes, they're very like-minded on foreign policy. Absolutely. And I think 20 years ago, actually, they sounded very similar. But again, as George Galloway said to me, he's gotten older, he's become more religious with age. There's a big gap there on social conservatism, the green agenda, identity. Well,
if the far left can't unite, then the chance of there being a left-wing party that's going to take seats is minimal right now, I think.
One of my viewers, Simon, says the so-called right of politics has gradually been shut down, Michelle, thanks to politically correct and diversity groups. Anyone now with a so-called different view is shut down and cancelled. Do you agree with that, Aaron?
I think cancel culture is a real thing. I think it has to be warded against left, right and centre. I think it exists across politics, by the way. And this is why I would want an enshrined constitutional right to free speech and freedom of association. I think in the era of social media and identity politics, you have to have it. And we have 68 million people in this country. Every single person needs a very small document that explains to them why other people have a right to say what they think. And we don't have that.
Ron?
I have to agree on that. I think freedom of speech is the bedrock of our society. And we are self-censoring as well. I think with the idea that people will be offended by our comments, we no longer say things that we used to say, and therefore society is becoming more insular and sensitive.
Why? What don't you say that you used to say?
Well, I'm not talking personally. I'm saying in general, we assume people will be offended by things actually that they're not. I think people are pretty broad-shouldered and they're happy to discuss things. Yeah.
I think way too many people get offended all the time. I think it's pathetic.
Well, there are those who very much enjoy taking offence, and it's also a way for them to make conversation. It's
very lucrative. Taking offence in this country is a very lucrative industry. You have like a whole, it's almost like a sub-economy set up with the people. All of these kind of groups that are anti-this and anti-this and diverse this and diverse that, all set up to, I'll come in and train you about how to do this, I'll give you advice about how to do that. I think it's very, very odd. One of my viewers has got in touch and said, Michelle, please will you stop talking? You're going on about Monty and they want me to stop. Apparently they say they absolutely love him, good on him for lifting the bar, and then good on him again for having the guts to leave. I'm not commenting on the guy. I don't know the guy. What I'm saying is, I mean, come on, grasp some basics. If you're going to go in and put your hat in the ring, which I applaud too, by the way, good. I think we need more people. Do a little bit of homework. I mean, that's not too much to ask, is it? I want to talk to you about migration, though, because the former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, he's among a group of people who today have announced a 36-point plan for immigration. Have you seen this one, everybody? He's calling for a few different things. So he wants the cap to be to the tens of thousands when it comes to the number that can come into this country. He also wants the Home Office to split up. Give me your initial thoughts on this.
This is very, very exciting. It's 36 points. Were it 35 points, I might not be as excited.
Are you actually really excited about this plan, or are you fibbing
This is
me?
election season, and we are pumping out policy ideas by the day, it seems. What I will say is that, for me, this is a red herring. We shouldn't be talking about the benefit of migration on the economy. I think we should be talking about the effects of migration on society. I think migration needs to be reduced significantly. Last year, over 600,000 people came here, net migration, which is completely unsustainable. And it means that we're unable to integrate at the same rate that people are actually migrating here. And when you have migration which is above the rate of integration, you risk ghettoization. And that's what we're starting to see. Our society is being impacted by the rate of immigration. And to talk about it purely...
It's been like that for ages.
Absolutely. And producing 36 points, which lays out how we are going to deal with the migration crisis, which I think it's fair to call it, actually belies the fact that what we don't need is more bureaucracy. We've got far too many civil servants already. What we need is a willingness by the civil service and our justice system, our central government, every aspect of the people who rule our country to actually do something about this, to look at the amount of people who are coming here every year, the ability of our infrastructure to change to meet those needs, and a decision with regard to the best interests of everybody who lives here. Well,
there you go. Gary, he's been in touch and says the issue that you have on the right is there is no real leadership. He says the Conservatives have failed us, and Richard Tice just doesn't seem to be it. He says you need Nigel Farage to come back and get stuck in. Mark, a viewer, has been in touch saying, can I just say that Matthew normally makes my head explode, but tonight is actually making sense. Mark, I don't know what programme you're watching, my friend, but there's nobody on this panel called Matthew.